7:35. Good morning. Head into the KUM News link Zoom room here where Mary Rhodes, the president of the Guam Restaurant Association, is standing by. Good morning, Mary.
Company, buenas, good morning.
Good morning. So we just played a little story in the news about the Korean market, and I know you sent me some stuff, and so let me just get this straight. The Koreans, they lifted the quarantine. They're ready to come to Guam now, but are we ready?
Well, when we were on, when I was on last week, we had explained some of the strategies with GVB, and their focus has really to try to get the destination ready. And last couple of weeks we've been meeting with all of our general managers and businesses, and we're encouraging everybody to, share information of where you think areas of concentration need to take place, because as markets around us are opening up and vaccination rates have increased. Korea, for example, their vaccination rates within adults is 96.2%, and they've had only 2% of deaths. So they've decided with the election of their new president last week that, and it was expected, and that's why I was on your show talking about this, is that definitely with the new elections, they would look at just kind of loosening up some of the restrictions like a lot of other areas, countries around us. And even some of our destination competitors like Saipan and Hawaii have really eased up restrictions, and they've also started negotiating with other countries to increase flight service. So for the most part, I know that, Guam has been waiting and is ready, but there are certain areas we need to focus on, like, again, the trash and lights in Tumon. I know GVB is working with GPA on the issues in Tumon. Also lights and our homelessness, our homeless population in Tumon. We met with GPD as well as some of our members to talk about some of the issues with regards to the homeless population and what services we can get them, so that we can improve some of our key areas within the tourism district.
I'm just trying to unpack everything you just said because I feel like for the last 2 years, all I've been hearing about was how we are addressing all the problems that we need to address for when tourism returns. I've been hearing that. I think we've done about 3 different stories about the homeless in Tumon and the parking structure and how they're going to kick them all out. So what is the real deal here? Because it sounds like we've been hearing that we've been doing all these things to get ready, but according to you, it seems like we're not ready.
Well, there are processes in place on how to work with them, but the challenge is that there aren't as many services out there of where they can go. So what they'll do is just move to a new location, unless they're committing a crime or something. They're just moving to another location, and so we need solutions for the residents and the businesses around the area of where they can go. And I know that there is a homeless coalition and there are other services available to them. And homelessness is not just an issue of just Tumon, it's also in Hagåtña, it's all around the island. And I think, definitely the government has been approaching that. But, it's just not the homeless population. It's also, trash in the area, again, lights not being, and then bathrooms aren't open. The public bathrooms are not open at all. They haven't been open for some time now with Parks and Rec. And so those are all being addressed by GVB's Destination Management Committee. And I send them pictures regularly of whatever I receive from our members to notify GVB of what other areas need to be focused on. So as much as we say we are ready, there are things that are constant that have a constant need of attention. And those things that just continually are issues for us with regards to trash, definitely in the area. But I know that they've picked up services, increased frequency. So I really want to thank them and the contractors that they do have now that they've picked up that frequency to keep trash off. So I know that it's a constant issue, and that there are a lot of concerns, but this is the first time in a very long time that our key source markets like Korea and Japan have started to make policy changes with regards to COVID. And so really where we were last year at this exact same time when we said we were going to have a reopening in May, because airlines were starting to look at traveling again. We're certainly at that point now. And between our, sister island in Saipan and also our competitor in Hawaii, they have certainly done those things to make their destination a lot more open. So they've eased restrictions. Saipan, for example, they've had a load factor, a real high load factor of 76% because they have their airline incentive program. So it does take a couple of things in order for GVB to put together, in which they're currently doing that in order to attract travelers to Guam. And so the schedule that they sent out, Air Busan, T-Way, and Jin Air, all three airlines are scheduled to come online with the online travel agencies in April. And then Jeju Air and Air Seoul are looking to come online in May. And so we're hoping that with all the additional flights, we'll be able to see an increase in load factor. And load factor is really what you want, because just because you say you have...
I'm sorry, Mary, can you explain what load factor is?
Yeah, so load factor to airlines is occupancy to hotels.
Okay.
So just because you have 6,500 rooms or seats available on a plane, load factor is how many people actually book a room and stay there. And so our load factor the last 2 months, even with the charter flights coming in, has remained at 10 and 11%. Whereas last year in November, we started seeing 44% load factor. So almost half the plane was full. And so right now you're only seeing it at 10, 11%. And that was because of the restriction of the quarantine for returning residents. Now with that being removed, and just so everybody understands, that will be removed on March 21st with this new administration. All Korean residents or Korean nationals will be able to freely travel as of March 21st. And then all non-Korean travelers, anyone that's a US citizen and fully vaccinated, you have to be fully vaccinated with a booster. You do not have to quarantine as of April 1. You just need a PCR test, but no quarantine. So between those two things happening for Korea, that's why we see that really the market will improve and load factor will probably improve as well. Because there aren't any restrictions going back.
Mary, so are we seeing now the start to a tourism recovery?
Definitely the pieces we need for Korea and Japan have moved, positively in that direction with them easing up on restrictions. Because as soon as that happens, then the airlines will start to schedule flights, regular flights, not just charter flights. Because charter flights are very hard to sell because there isn't a regular flight. Like right now, you can't go online to Expedia and find a regular flight or any of the online travel agents. So in Korea, a lot of the OTAs, that are very popular in Korea, those have to start scheduling, booking airlines. And so as soon as the airlines start announcing these dates, that's when we can start to see them being listed and promoted. And then the other piece to it is not just the announcement of the date, easing of restrictions, and then flights being available, is that the agents who sell Guam, package Guam, can also then go out and promote Guam as a destination.
Right.
So it's really a multiple, it's multiple steps in getting Guam to be promoted. And that's why GVB in the meantime, needs to use this time to strategically place Guam on top of everybody else as a destination. And then you'll see that President Guterres has also stated that they're going to take some trips to Korea and to Japan to start really talking.
Oh, and travel.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But really, regardless of traveling from our leaders here on the island, we do have general sales agents. We have offices in Korea and Japan. So
Oh,
even
Mary, I'm
during
sorry.
this time,
Japan. You mentioned Japan a couple times. What you're hearing about Korea and you're tracking with Korea, are you seeing or hearing and seeing similar things with our Japan market?
well, we heard about a month ago already that Japan lowered restrictions down to 3 days from seven. And so going down to 3 days has really helped improve. I think that the foreign travelers from Japan wanting to travel more now outside of Japan. And so with the easing of that restriction, we've seen, more interest from that market. And so as we are preparing, because Korea is much faster in re-entering the market with easing of these restrictions, they were much faster to date, and we already expected that. So really, between Korea and Japan being our two largest markets, then really GVB would be focusing on that or should be focusing on that. And then I know Taiwan will follow soon after. So that's why they're mentioning a trip. But regardless of a trip, as I said, we have general sales agents, GSAs, that we actually pay for those offices. So that is what has been maintained in the budget, is paying for those offices and those agents to continue working with airlines and with the agents in their home country.
Yeah. Man, Mary, I feel like I kind of pay attention, but the last thing I remember out of GVB is that give us a moment.
Yeah, well, they've done two things since then. They did the Airbnb program since Give Us a Moment, right? And GHRA worked with GVB on that. And then they also started the PCR testing. So they make the PCR test that's required upon your return, that is free to the travelers.
Right, yeah.
Saipan gives that as well, and Hawaii. So Guam, they started that last year, but I don't know if you remember, they started depleting the funds already on that. They do have some funds reserved, and they were able to get additional dollars for this reopening. And so right now, what they reported at the Korean Marketing Committee is they're still working out the logistics with public health and all of the private clinics to make sure that there are enough funds, enough for these new travelers coming in from Korea,
Yeah.
but also the processes are there for quick turnaround time.
Mary, I know that last Thursday the Manila night market started up again, right? And so we've had this Vandania Fridays thing going on with GVB. But what about,
Correct.
have you heard Chamorro Village? Because I think Chamorro Village night market, right? When I think tourism, I just, right?
Right.
Do you know, have you heard anything about Chamorro Village, or what's the deal?
I haven't heard much about Chamorro Village. Between the other night markets taking place. I mean, Skinner Plaza has been popular throughout the pandemic,
Right.
and that's on Thursday nights. So I think that everybody is, whoever's organizing these events, are respectful of the fact that Chamorro Village has historically been on Wednesdays, and so nobody really touches that.
Yeah.
Knowing the vendors would probably, keep that as a priority once they open up. And so, the thing is with these night markets right now, I mean, their key markets definitely are the local communities as well as military communities. But as soon as Korean travelers come back to Guam, they'll definitely want to do that. The key in those night markets, though, the reason why I think even Wednesday night was so successful is we were able to coordinate. I don't know if you remember that, but we started coordinating with the buses.
Oh, yeah.
To make that a regular 3-hour schedule. And so that would become very important, where GVB would start to coordinate that with the Japan Guam Travel Association or the Korean agents to make sure the busing and that's all, created and maintained. Even with Vandania Fridays, right? So we need to ensure transportation is available. And usually the tourists, they pay, that's part of their package.
Yeah.
When they come to Guam.
Yeah.
But right now, transportation companies, a lot of them are busier because of the military projects.
Right.
And so as soon as there's a regularly scheduled flight, and I think as soon as load factor starts to go up, then probably transportation companies will restart their routes.
Mary, I had a couple more. The price of gas, how do you anticipate that impacting tourism recovery?
It'll definitely be a concern for a lot of people. Just the fact that, it's added to the price of tickets. There are fuel surcharges on top of the regular price ticket, on the ticket, as well as just on anything right now, whether what you purchase for travel, for different modes of transportation, whether it's airlines or rental car or busing, right? So everybody's going to have an increase in pricing. And so price sensitivity will impact it a little bit, I think, depending on Guam's already an expensive destination when you think about it. And that's where those airline incentive programs are important. So the fact that Saipan is continuing it, and if GVB is going to consider continuing their airline incentive program, I think that can help with the price, airline price of coming to Guam.
What about the hotels, Mary? How are the hotels preparing for tourism recovery?
Definitely, the hotels have been ready. They've been operating. A lot of them have been operating at 100% whenever we've had a lot of military activity. And we know of more activity, in the next month or so through the summer. So I think, again, the key will be a regularly scheduled flight of airlines. It's great to hear that they're opening up, but how many flights are going to be booked to Guam? And then it's the load factor again. If we can get load factor up to desirable rate, even 44% is not that desirable, but it was the highest we received in the last 6 months. And so that would maintain, if we can get that, then I think we have a good chance at a regularly flight schedule. A lot of airlines, they don't hold a route unless you have a load factor of 60%, right? So it's very challenging, and there has to be a lot of a commitment on both sides with the airline incentive program, as well as a commitment from the airline itself. So just the fact that they've announced that they're considering Guam April, I think is good. But then GVB definitely needs to work more with the airlines to secure these dates and a regularly scheduled flight. In order for, those are the triggers that needs to take place for the other airline and tourism stakeholder partners to start reopening, right? So such as transportation and all that. And that was the point of the LEAP program. And I know I mentioned a second round of LEAP, and I think that would be really important if the governor really wants to inject dollars into private sector and really give it a boost that it needs. Then round two should really focus on the operators who need to reopen or to add services for those who have remained open. And it should be really tourism specific.
Mary, so I mean, is that a done deal? Are we getting the second round of the LEAP?
I think it's still in discussion. Okay. I think that the fact that they closed LEAP early, because LEAP 1 early, because they already exhausted had so many applicants, more than they expected, definitely shows the need. And then the average award and the types of companies who received it definitely shows that, the program, the money is available for this specific program was going to go out to a large number of businesses. So it definitely fulfilled those parts of the program. But I think that to focus a little bit more on the tourism sector so that they can get that injection they need, so that we can do our part to ensure that businesses reopen when we need to. Because there are caveats in the program where covenants are in place where you have to open and rehire staff, right? So for example, 60% has to go to labor. So all of those things, those businesses need to accomplish and submit back to GHRA in order to show that they've met the qualifications of that forgivable loan program, so they can be forgiven. Then they can have the data to determine a second round, but more specifically to tourism sector.
Mary, what was the, how many awards were given, and what was the average award for the LEAP program? 1.9. I
don't know if they've completed the final award. I heard that, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard that only a certain amount, like a little bit more than half, were actually awarded because the funds were there. I don't know if the legislature and DOA has transferred the money to GHRA yet, just to fulfill the second half of it. So I don't think that GHRA has completed the full award of the $50,000.
And so I know that you're talking about LEAP 2.0 again. How much do you think the governor should commit to this?
The last time we looked at the numbers, it was about $70 million, right? So if you want to make everybody whole, it's another 20. But if you want to be more specific to the tourism sector, GHRA would have to do an analysis of that list of the number of applicants that they received, to look at who are very specific, who are the tourism stakeholders that you really need for, let's say, transportation, optional tours, and the like. So I think that there needs to be some analysis on which business establishments really are going to be covered under LEAP 2. It all depends on what the strategy is and the goal is, right? To get people to, because if they're already going to employ them for a certain period, and this is going to cover them for, let's say, 90 days, if the goal is to extend them out another 90 days to get them through summer, then I would, if it's to everybody, then it's another 50 million.
God, I was going to ask you something. What about the restrictions being lifted, right? So the gathering limits lifted, no longer requiring proof of vaccination to dine in. Let's just
well,
play.
Gathering for indoor is 100.
Okay.
Outdoor is unlimited.
Got it.
Right. So we have met with public health. We met with them last week, and it was a really good meeting because as you saw that the governor made an announcement Friday, they've also removed the vaccination requirement of employees. So a lot has changed. And I know I sent that to you as well as other media partners with regards to 2022-11. So this is very key. So all of the things that were listed in all other guidance memos, those no longer are required. The only things that are required are 2022-11. So for example, the 6 feet between chairs and tables, it's only tables now. Even buffet where they had to be served to you, which required more staff. Now you can actually do self-service. The 6 feet between people in lines, whether it's cashier or buffet line, that's not mentioned. Plexiglass at all of the locations, plus also for entertainment, that's not mentioned. So anything that's not mentioned that was required before, they don't have to do.
Right.
And so we were able to have a very good meeting with DEH last week. We also shared the inspection reports for both COVID guidelines as well as food establishment guidelines. And then yesterday we just sent the building inspection guideline for hotels. And so we've as I mentioned to you 2 weeks ago, we've resumed all meetings with government agencies to talk about compliance programs, because as we're starting to ease restrictions, we know that the expectation is there that they're going to probably visit a lot more. And we want to make sure that all of our members understand that as they're removing these things, what is left as far as maintaining, right? And still being required of what those guidelines are. And so it's really gone from a much larger document to just a couple of real simple guidelines now that they have to maintain, like on the cleaning, sanitizing, disinfection, and mask wearing, making sure that they continue to still wear their mask. Yeah. Now, other markets like Hawaii, obviously, they were the last state to allow mask removal or no masks at all. And so CDC put that out ever since September 2020, and Hawaii just removed their mask requirement. I believe it was last week or the week before. Right. And so I believe that goes in effect next week.
Yeah.
And so I know that the governor has said, though, that that would be the last one that she would, recommend removing is the mask mandate.
Do you guys have a stance on that at all, or?
Not so much the mask mandate. We've really been pushing easing of restrictions on the other things, which we felt we definitely got more clarification last Friday,
Yeah.
because just the number of people it's taken to staff up in order to operate has been high. And so by removing a lot of those restrictions or just not mentioning them at all has really clarified a lot of things for us. And so it was a really good meeting, like I said, and then the governor made that announcement of no vaccine requirement for employees across the board for private sector, and it's limited to only a couple of agencies. So we're starting to see things go more positively in the direction that we've been hoping for since the holidays. So I know that because of infections and hospitalizations are lower, and that was their goal. It's good to see these things starting to come to fruition at the same time Korea is being announced.
Right. So have you guys been balling out since they lifted the restrictions, or what? Is you getting a lot of business?
I know that there's been an increase in dining for sure, and hotels. They've had a lot of business. A lot of people hold dates. The challenge is that we're still at 100 for indoor. And so, I know of one organization that has 3 different nights for an event because they have to do 3 separate nights for 100 each, right, to meet their goal. And so I hope that the Gov at some point will be comfortable in increasing congregation because we have occupancy. And we have the guidelines. If we could just operate with the guidelines in place, then we should be able to operate at 100%, whether it's indoor or outdoor.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make, to me, I don't know, it doesn't make sense that you can gather 1 million people outside, but only 100 indoors.
Yeah, I think everybody's okay with the mask mandate as long as you're actively eating, drinking. Just allow us to operate 100% indoors as well.
Mary, so you talked about looking over the guidance. What actually is required for, I guess, restaurants? Is temperature check still required?
No.
So temperature checks no longer.
The contact log, all of that. So I'll send you 2022-11.
Oh, got it. How many pages is it, Mary?
It's 26 pages.
Oh, God.
But all you have to do is focus on covered establishments section.
Okay.
And the covered establishments, it's very specific. So I'll just send you that portion of the page. But I'll send you still the whole document. So the team can upload it.
Yeah.
But as far as the covered establishment guidelines, that's really all they have to do.
What happens to all of the money and the equipment that businesses have procured and spent money on over the last couple of years, like the temperature check thingies? I mean, every business had to have those, and now it's like, oh, you don't need it anymore. What happens? Is there like a resale market for that, or?
No. Well, what I would do is hold on to it because you don't know if this stuff is going to reactivate and we may need to do this again. But also some businesses are choosing to maintain some of these requirements, right? You can always do more. If you feel it's safer for your guests as well as your employees, some people are continuing that. I know the one that definitely everybody's taken away is the log. Because they weren't really following up on contact tracing, right? At some point they weren't. So, and they were very upfront about that, is that it's out in the community and they're not going to do that anymore. Yeah. So
we're not going to do the contact tracing anymore. It's too much.
Yeah, I would definitely just store it or maintain it. I've heard of some people wanting to keep the plexiglass up, like at buffet service or even the bars, just because it makes people feel safe. And the psychology of it, right, is if you're caring about your employees, you're definitely caring about your guests as well. Right. So it's really an option for businesses, and I've heard of some of them wanting to maintain that.
That's interesting. So they're not requiring the contact log anymore.
No, they took that away some time ago.
Yeah, but Mary, when I go like take out or pick up food or whatever just around here, everybody still has the contact log. I actually had to fill it out when I ate out with the kids last weekend.
Yeah, again, because not everybody is a member of GHRA, and we are regularly sending messages out to people. Yeah. it's going to take a while for businesses to understand that unless DEH goes out and, conveys this out to
Yeah. They
the
should do a
public,
big
right?
bonfire of all the contact tracing logs. Just say, pile them up, burn them. You don't need it
No.
anymore.
Remember, we're not supposed to be burning anything.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, my bad. My bad, Mary. I'm just saying.
Yeah, not right now. GFD says don't burn anything.
Correct.
But certainly there's recycling. We can
Yeah.
recycle paper on Guam. But I sent you the 2020.
I saw.
2-11, and I will, after we're done talking, or I can just go to that page now. But so it's very important that everybody just remember to hold on to everything. Don't sell it on eBay, and don't, just because you don't know when you're going to need it again. And like I said, you can always go above and beyond for your employees and guests as well. So
Thank you, Mary. That's it? Only that?
no, that's huge.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
last
of
Friday
course.
after our meeting, we were very happy to meet with DEH and talk about this as well as many other things that I'm probably going to have 4 other updates for you later on with regards
Nice.
to because the pool regulations, sanitary permits, there's so many things that they touch on.
What's up with the
regards to
pools?
the industry.
What's the protocol for the pools now?
Well, that went into effect a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember. They passed the new regulations, and so that's going to become effective soon. And so we're working with all of our members to update them on what exactly has changed. So the pool regulations has changed a couple of years ago. It's been on hold though because of the with the government, both the schools as well as the public pools weren't ready to comply with that just yet. So they did a hold on its effective date. But I know in our meeting with public health that, and this is not just all government and private, hotel pools. It's any commercial public pool. So imagine apartments, like everybody who has a pool basically has to comply.
So these are just regular, not COVID. These are just the regular rules and regs for pools?
Right. So that's why I'm saying there's, we've resumed our meetings with the government agencies and we've talked about many of the programs that are going to be going online. And so GHRA that's what we're focusing on is really the regulatory affairs and compliance of these rules and regs, because we want to make sure as businesses are reopening that they are also looking at some of these changes coming down the pipe.
Wow.
So we need to get them ready.
Yeah. Are we going to still be able to wear Speedos in the pool?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
It's the clarity.
God, thank you.
It's really more the structure of the pool
of the Speedo
and
or
the safety things around it.
Got you.
Yeah. What you wear is really up to you, though, Chris.
It is. Yeah, you do you guys. You want to wear a Speedo? Just fine. Just don't wear it backwards.
Right, exactly.
Mary, thank you for your time this morning.
No, thank you, too.
Okay.
Okay, take care, everybody.
See you. Okay, we'll see you again. She'll be back. She said she's going to have about 4 updates coming up soon. It's always rapidly evolving with you, Mary. I feel like if I hang up and bring you back in an hour, you'll have like 2 more updates.
And that's just one agency. Imagine.
Right. Thanks. Shoot me a text.
Thank you.
Okay. Adjust. 809. Mary Rhodes of the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association. Good morning. Yeah, that was interesting, huh, sir? Yep. Because I swear